Compassionate hearts bring a gentle face. You know, there's something fascinating about the way our inner world spills over into the way we appear to others. I'm not talking about makeup, haircuts, or the latest anti-aging cream. I'm talking about something much deeper, something you can't buy in a store. When someone carries a compassionate heart, it softens their face in a way no cosmetic ever could. Think about the people in your life who radiate warmth. Maybe it's a grandmother whose wrinkles tell stories of decades spent caring for others. Or perhaps it's a friend who always seems to understand your struggles without judgment. When they look at you, their eyes don't just see you, they embrace you. That is the invisible beauty of compassion. In Buddhist teachings, the mind is the root of all things, and compassion, karu, is considered one of the highest qualities we can cultivate. It's not just about feeling sorry for someone, it's about genuinely wishing for the relief of their suffering. And when that wish becomes a habit of the heart, it changes the way you carry yourself. Your eyes soften. Your tone of voice becomes kinder. Your face relaxes, not because life is perfect, but because your heart is open. Science even backs this up. Studies in psychology show that people who regularly practice compassion tend to have more relaxed facial muscles and lower stress levels. Their expressions are naturally more approachable, which in turn makes others more likely to respond with kindness. It's like a positive feedback loop. Compassion softens you, and that softness invites more compassion in return. But here's something worth pondering. Have you noticed how a lack of compassion can harden someone's features over time? Bitterness, resentment, constant criticism, they leave their own marks, just as surely as laughter leaves smile lines. It's as if the heart carves its story onto the face, one emotion at a time. So, the question becomes, what story is your face telling right now? If a stranger looked into your eyes today, would they see a guarded wall, or would they see a welcome sign? And if the answer isn't what you'd like, maybe compassion is the path back, not just to looking gentler, but to being gentler. I remember once meeting a monk in a remote temple in Thailand. His face was lined, his robe worn, and yet he seemed to carry a lightness about him. When he smiled, it was as if the whole room sighed in relief. Later, he told me that his secret was simple. Every time I meet someone, I silently wish them happiness. No one could see that wish, but everyone could feel it. And that feeling, that invisible transmission of care, is what made his presence unforgettable. Compassion isn't just about what you do for others, it's about the way you see them. And when you change the way you see, your entire expression changes. You don't force it. You don't fake it. You simply live with a heart that chooses to be kind. So today, maybe we can each take one step towards softening, not our skin, but our spirit. Start with the people closest to you. Notice their small struggles. Offer a gentle word. And most importantly, allow yourself to care. Because in the end, the most beautiful faces are not those that time spares, but those that love shapes. Compassion as the source of true beauty. There's a truth so simple, yet so easy to forget in a world obsessed with appearances. Real beauty isn't found in the mirror, it's born in the heart. The ancient Buddhist text, the Dhammapada, begins with a line that has shaped the way I see the world. The mind precedes all things. Everything you are, everything you express, begins first in the mind. And when the mind is steeped in compassion, it transforms you in ways no makeup, no cream, and no filter ever could. Think about this. When you meet someone whose face lights up not because of perfect skin or symmetrical features, but because there's a kindness in their eyes, doesn't it stop you in your tracks? There's a softness there, a warmth that makes you feel safe without even knowing why. That's not the kind of beauty you can paint on. That's the beauty that radiates from the inside out. Buddhist teachings remind us that compassion, karu, is not just a passing feeling. It's the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. When we hold that wish sincerely, something shifts inside us. Our thoughts become gentler. Our words carry less judgment. Even the way we look at others changes. Our gaze no longer scans for faults, but searches for understanding. Modern science is beginning to catch up with this ancient wisdom. Psychologists have found that practicing compassion reduces stress and tension in the body, even relaxing the tiny muscles in your face. That's why people who live with an open heart tend to appear more approachable. Their facial expressions invite trust. Their presence feels like an exhale after a long day. But the opposite is also true. A heart closed off by resentment, envy, or constant criticism eventually writes those emotions onto the face. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry a permanent frown, even when they're not upset? or how bitterness seems to weigh down the eyes. The mind shapes the body, and over time, the story of your heart is written in your expression. So here's a question worth asking yourself. If someone saw you for the first time today, without hearing a single word from you, what would your face tell them? Would it say, "You're safe here"? Or would it say, "Stay away"? I once met a monk in Chiang Mai, Thailand, whose presence left an imprint on me. He was in his 70s, his skin weathered by decades under the sun. Yet when he smiled, it felt as though the air around him shifted, lighter, softer. Later, I learned his simple practice. Every time he saw someone, he silently wished them happiness. He didn't need to speak those words out loud. People could feel them. And that silent blessing, repeated thousands of times over a lifetime, had shaped not only his spirit but the very lines on his face. This is why I believe true beauty is less about the features you were born with, and more about the energy you choose to cultivate. A compassionate heart creates a beauty that doesn't fade with age, it deepens. It's the kind of beauty that remains long after the photos are forgotten, the kind people remember when they recall how you made them feel. And cultivating that beauty doesn't require a dramatic life change. It begins in small moments, offering patience when someone is slow, listening without planning your reply, giving without expecting anything back, even pausing for a breath before reacting in anger. These tiny acts, repeated daily, reshape not only your relationships but your very presence in the world. I think of compassion as a kind of invisible perfume. You can't see it, but people notice when you carry it. It lingers in a room after you've left. It's remembered long after your words are forgotten. And unlike any cosmetic, it costs nothing but your willingness to care. Of course, compassion isn't always easy. We live in a world that often rewards sharpness over softness, self-interest over selflessness. It can feel like being gentle makes you vulnerable. But here's the paradox. Compassion isn't weakness, it's a form of quiet strength. It takes courage to respond with understanding when you've been hurt, to choose empathy over ego, to keep your heart open in a world that sometimes asks you to shut it down. And here's something beautiful. When you commit to compassion, you don't just change yourself, you invite change in others. Your presence becomes a mirror, reminding people of the kindness within themselves. They soften in your company. They speak more gently. And little by little, the energy in the space around you shifts. So maybe it's time to rethink beauty. Not as a battle against age, not as a performance for others, but as the natural byproduct of how we live and love. When compassion leads the way, beauty stops being something you chase. It becomes something you naturally carry. Let me leave you with this thought. Every line on your face will tell a story one day. Will it be the story of worry, anger, and guardedness? Or will it be the story of care, laughter, and an open heart? The choice is yours, and it begins right now, in this very moment, with the way you choose to see the world, and the way you choose to love it. Compassionate eyes as the windows of a pure heart. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. I think they're even more than that. They're the mirrors of the mind. Every glance you give to the world carries a silent message. And no matter how much we try to hide what's inside, the truth has a way of showing up in our gaze. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt an immediate sense of peace? As if, in that moment, they weren't just looking at you, they were truly seeing you, without judgment, without agenda. There's a softness there, an openness that makes you want to stay a little longer in their presence. That's not an accident. That's the reflection of a loving heart. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the mind shapes every experience, and the eyes are one of its clearest reflections. A heart that harbors compassion naturally softens the gaze. There's no hostility in it, no need to measure or compare. The look itself becomes a kind of shelter, a place where others can rest without fear of being criticized or misunderstood. It's something you can't fake for long. We can smile without meaning it. We can say polite words we don't believe. But the eyes, those are harder to disguise. They reveal when we are impatient, when we are suspicious, when we are quietly judging. And they also reveal when we are genuinely kind. Think back to a time when you were going through something difficult, and someone simply looked at you with understanding. Maybe they didn't offer solutions. Maybe they didn't even say much at all. But their eyes told you, "I'm here with you." That's the silent power of compassion. It speaks without words. I remember visiting a meditation center years ago and meeting a teacher in his late 60s. He didn't greet me with a handshake or a big smile. Instead, he just looked into my eyes for a moment, as though he could see past my hurried thoughts and straight into the heart of my worries. It wasn't invasive, it was comforting, like someone turning on a light in a dim room. That single glance felt like an entire conversation of acceptance. Science has its own way of explaining this. Studies in nonverbal communication show that our gaze can influence trust, connection, and even healing. Prolonged eye contact, when paired with warmth, activates parts of the brain that signal safety and belonging. In other words, your eyes can literally help someone feel more at ease in their own skin. But just as compassion softens the eyes, a heart clouded by anger, resentment, or constant criticism can harden them. The gaze becomes sharp, defensive, or distant, like a closed door. People pick up on this instantly, often without knowing why. And so, the way we look at the world begins to shape the way the world looks back at us. Here's something to consider. When you wake up in the morning and face the mirror, are your eyes tired and guarded? Or do they carry a quiet openness? If you're not sure, think about how you've been meeting others lately. In traffic, at the grocery store, in your own home. Your gaze is a reflection of how your heart has been living. The good news is, this isn't fixed. Just as the heart can be trained in compassion, the eyes can learn to carry it. The more you practice seeing others with kindness, especially when they're difficult to love, the more your gaze changes naturally. And over time, people will feel that shift before they even hear you speak. One simple way to begin is to silently wish well for the person in front of you, even if you never say it aloud. In Buddhism, this is part of metta, or loving kindness practice. It can be as simple as thinking, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be free from suffering. No one will hear it, but they may feel it, in the gentleness of your eyes, in the absence of judgment in your expression. And this isn't just about strangers. Imagine the effect it can have on your family, your friends, your partner. When they speak, you meet their words not with distracted glances or half listening, but with the full presence of your attention. You're not just looking, you're receiving. That kind of gaze tells someone they matter, that they're valued, that they're safe with you. There's a beautiful saying, we look with our eyes, but we see with our heart. When the heart is pure, the eyes become like open windows, letting light pour through. And when others catch that light, it reminds them of the light within themselves. So maybe beauty isn't just about what people see when they look at you, it's about what they feel when you look at them. Compassionate eyes are not just a gift to others, they are a reflection of the best parts of ourselves. They tell the world, without a single word, you belong, you are seen, you are enough. In the end, our eyes are the most honest storytellers we have. The question is, what story are yours telling today? A smile of loving kindness as a healing medicine. There's something extraordinary about a smile. Not just any smile, but one that comes from a place of genuine compassion. We all know the polite smile, the I'm fine smile, the social mask we put on to get through the day. But the smile I'm talking about is different. It's the kind that's born from truly understanding another person's suffering and still choosing to meet them with warmth. The Buddha once said, a smile is a sign of liberation from fear and anger. Think about that for a moment. When you smile from the heart, it's not just a pleasant facial expression, it's evidence that something inside you has been freed. Fear loosens its grip, anger loses its edge, and in that space, kindness flows naturally. Have you ever been having a hard day, and someone gave you a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds? Maybe it was a stranger passing you on the street. Maybe it was a friend who didn't need you to explain what was wrong. They just looked at you with understanding. That kind of smile doesn't just brighten a moment. It heals something deeper. In Buddhist practice, loving kindness, metta, isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's about meeting reality exactly as it is, including the pain, and still choosing to respond with care. A smile born from loving kindness is not a denial of suffering. It's an acknowledgement of it. It says, I see your pain, and I'm not turning away. I learned this lesson years ago when visiting a monastery in Myanmar. The abbot was an elderly man with deep lines etched into his face, the kind you can only earn from a lifetime of both hardship and joy. When I met him, I was carrying a lot of inner turmoil, stress, self-doubt, old anger I hadn't let go of. He didn't ask me questions. He didn't offer advice. He just smiled. It wasn't a forced smile. It wasn't even particularly big, but it carried something. Patience, acceptance, and a kind of quiet encouragement that made me feel lighter instantly. That's the power of a smile that's rooted in compassion. It doesn't try to fix you. It simply makes space for you to breathe again. Modern science tells us that smiles can trigger a cascade of feel-good chemicals in the brain: dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. But beyond the biology, there's an unspoken emotional truth. When you receive a smile that's genuine, you feel seen. Not as a problem to be solved, but as a human worthy of care. The Buddha's words about a smile being a sign of liberation remind us that before we can truly give this kind of smile to others, we must work on freeing our own hearts. A smile is not healing because it hides pain. It's healing because it's born from a heart that has made peace with it. So how do we cultivate that? It starts with awareness. Noticing the moments when fear or anger tighten our face. Paying attention to the times we smile just to avoid conflict or out of habit, rather than from a genuine place. And then, practicing softening, not just our lips, but our whole being. One practical way is through mindfulness meditation. Sitting quietly, breathing deeply, and bringing to mind someone you care about. Imagine sending them your warmest smile, even if they're far away. Let that feeling grow until it becomes more than just a mental picture. It becomes a physical warmth in your chest, a relaxation in your face. Over time, that practice makes it easier to meet people in daily life with the same openness. Another way is through understanding. When you remember that everyone you meet is carrying their own struggles, some visible, some hidden, it becomes harder to meet them with harshness. A smile then becomes not a performance, but a natural response to our shared humanity. It's important to note, a smile of loving kindness doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or ignoring boundaries. It doesn't mean saying yes when you need to say no. It simply means that even in disagreement, even in difficulty, you can hold on to your humanity and theirs. Your smile becomes an offering of dignity, not approval. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more we give this kind of smile, the more it heals us, too. Each time we choose kindness over bitterness, each time we release judgment in favor of understanding, we loosen the knots in our own heart. We remind ourselves that we are capable of meeting life without closing down. If you've ever felt that your smile has faded because of the weight you're carrying, remember, compassion is a practice, not a personality trait you either have or don't have. You can grow it. You can start small. Even today, you can give one person, just one, a smile that comes from the truth of your heart. And that single moment may ripple further than you can imagine. So the next time you cross paths with someone who looks tired, overwhelmed, or lost in thought, consider what it would mean to offer them a smile. Not the quick, automatic kind, but the kind that says, "I see you. I wish you well." That's not just courtesy. That's medicine. In a world where so many people are walking around wounded, a smile of loving kindness might be one of the simplest and most powerful ways to help each other heal. Warmth that flows from within. There's a kind of beauty you can't put on with makeup, and you can't take off at the end of the day. It's not in the clothes you wear or the way you style your hair. It's something far more subtle, yet far more powerful, a warmth that flows from within. When compassion fills the heart, it changes everything about how we show up in the world. It softens the way we speak. It slows down our reactions. And it gives our face a gentle glow, not the kind you get from perfect lighting or a camera filter, but the kind that comes from a spirit at peace with itself. We've all met someone like this. You see them and immediately feel more at ease, even if they don't say a word. Maybe it's the way their eyes seem to truly meet yours, without rushing to look away. Maybe it's the way their smile feels unhurried, as if they have all the time in the world for you. There's a sense of safety in their presence, a feeling that you don't have to pretend, you don't have to perform. Buddhist wisdom teaches that when the heart holds compassion, it radiates outward like light from a lamp. The lamp doesn't have to try to shine. It simply does, because that's its nature. In the same way, when kindness is rooted deep in us, others can feel it before we've spoken a single word. Science gives us its own explanation. Studies show that emotions are contagious, not just through words, but through subtle facial expressions and micromovements. When someone is genuinely warm and open, their body language signals safety to the people around them. Our nervous systems respond in kind, relaxing without us even realizing it. But here's the thing, this kind of warmth can't be faked for long. We can smile without meaning it, or say "I'm fine" when we are not, but the energy we carry eventually shows through. True warmth begins in the heart, not on the surface. It comes from choosing empathy over judgment, and understanding over indifference. I remember once meeting a woman in a small coastal village in Vietnam. She sold fruit in the market, and every morning, She would greet each customer with the same gentle nod and warm smile. Her stall wasn't the fanciest. Her fruit wasn't the cheapest. But people kept returning to her. I asked one man why, and he simply said, "When she looks at you, you feel human again." That's the magic of inner warmth. It makes people feel seen, safe, and valued. And in a world where so many are guarded, that's a rare and precious gift. So how do we cultivate this? It starts with presence. When we are fully present with someone, listening without planning our reply, looking into their eyes without distraction, we create a space where they can relax. Compassion isn't just about helping people in crisis. It's about offering small moments of genuine connection in everyday life. Another key is self-compassion. If your heart is harsh toward yourself, it's hard to offer softness to others. The warmth we give is often the warmth we've learned to give ourselves. When we forgive our own mistakes, when we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we become more accepting of the imperfections we see in others. Of course, life will test this warmth. There will be people who challenge our patience, situations that spark frustration, moments when it feels easier to close off. But that's exactly when compassion matters most. Like a candle in the dark, its light is most noticeable when everything else is shadow. Imagine for a moment, if every person you met today felt just a little safer, a little more welcome in the world, simply because of the way you greeted them, what kind of ripple could that create? You might never know how far it travels. But somewhere, someone might go home with their burden a little lighter, simply because your warmth reached them. The glow of compassion is not about perfection. It's not about being endlessly cheerful or always agreeable. It's about sincerity. It's about showing up with a heart that says, "You matter. You are safe with me." That message doesn't need to be spoken. It lives in your eyes, your tone, your presence. And here's the beautiful part. The more warmth we give, the more we receive. People respond to it, reflect it back, and pass it on. Over time, it becomes a way of living, a way of relating to the world that doesn't just make others feel better, it transforms us, too. So maybe today, we can practice letting our warmth lead the way. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments. A patient pause when someone is slow, a gentle smile for a stranger, a kind word for someone who looks like they need it. Because in the end, beauty that comes from within never fades. And the warmth we carry in our hearts is the kind of light that can guide not just our own path, but the paths of those who cross it. Compassion melts away the traces of anger. Have you ever noticed how anger leaves its fingerprints on a face? It's not just a fleeting emotion. It etches itself into the way someone looks, the way they move, the way they meet your eyes. A person who carries long years of resentment often has a certain tightness around the mouth, a furrow between the brows that never fully smooths out, a gaze that feels like it's measuring and defending all at once. It's not that they're bad people. It's that anger, when held onto, begins to shape us, literally. It can harden the softness in our expressions, dim the light in our eyes, and make our presence feel colder than we mean it to be. The Buddha once taught that the mind is the forerunner of all things. What we cultivate inside eventually shows on the outside. Anger might flare in a moment, but if we feed it, by replaying the same old stories of hurt, by nursing the belief that we were wronged, it settles into us. Like water wearing down stone, it gradually changes our features, even without us noticing. But here's the hope. Compassion can undo this. Loving kindness is not just a nice idea, it's medicine. Slowly, patiently, it begins to soften the lines anger has carved. It replaces the cold sharpness of the gaze with something warm and open. I've seen it happen, and maybe you have too. I once knew a man who had been through years of bitterness after a betrayal. At first, you could see the pain in the set of his jaw, in the way his eyes darted away when someone tried to connect. But over time, he started a daily practice, not of forgiving right away, but of wishing well-being for himself and for others, even those he couldn't yet forgive. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a quiet, steady watering of a seed. Months later, I noticed something different. His laugh came easier. His eyes stayed longer on the faces of people he spoke to. The corners of his mouth lifted in moments of stillness. It was as though the sunlight of compassion had begun melting the frost that anger left behind. Science backs this up too. Chronic anger activates the body's stress systems, tightening muscles, narrowing blood vessels, releasing stress hormones. This not only affects our health, but also the subtle cues in our expressions. When compassion enters, it calms these systems. The muscles soften, the face relaxes, the nervous system settles. But compassion doesn't just erase anger from the outside, it transforms it from the inside. See, anger often carries a hidden message. I was hurt. I was scared. I felt unseen. When we meet those feelings with kindness, first toward ourselves, something shifts. We stop needing to carry the armor so tightly. And without that armor, our face changes too. Think of a time you saw someone genuinely at peace. Their face likely carried a quiet openness, a readiness to meet the world without bracing against it. That's the gift compassion gives us. It doesn't just make us look gentler, it makes us feel safer to be gentle. Now, does this mean we never get angry? Of course not. Anger is part of being human. It can even be useful when it alerts us to injustice. But when anger stays too long, it stops protecting us and starts imprisoning us. Compassion is the key that unlocks that cell, not by pretending the hurt never happened, but by choosing not to let it write the rest of our story. Imagine your own face 5 years from now. What do you want it to reflect? The tightness of battles still being fought? Or the ease of a heart that has learned to let go? Every small act of kindness, every choice to see someone else's humanity, even in disagreement, shapes that answer. Compassion is like warm water poured over ice. The melting may be slow, almost invisible at first, but it's inevitable. Over time, the rigid patterns anger creates begin to dissolve, replaced by something far softer and far more alive. And when that happens, we don't just look different, we are different. So maybe today, instead of holding on to that last sharp word you wish you'd said, you could try something else. A breath, a gentle thought toward yourself, a small wish for peace, even for the one who wronged you. Not because they deserve it in some moral scoreboard, but because you deserve the freedom that compassion brings. And when compassion lives in your heart, it will find its way to your face. People will notice, even if they can't name it. They'll feel safer, warmer, more open in your presence. And in a world that often feels cold, that is a gift worth giving. Because in the end, beauty shaped by compassion isn't fleeting. It's the kind that deepens with age. It's the kind that no storm of anger can erase once it's rooted in you. The magnetism of invisible beauty. Some kinds of beauty you can see from across the street. A sharp jawline, the perfect outfit, hair catching the sunlight just right. That's the kind of beauty we've been taught to notice, the kind magazines sell and social media filters perfect. But there's another kind of beauty, one that you can't measure with the eyes, yet you feel it the moment you meet it. It's not in the bone structure. It's not in the clothes. It's in the presence. It's in the way someone makes you feel when you're around them. This is what I call invisible beauty. You've probably met someone like this. Maybe they weren't the person who turned heads in a crowd, but after talking to them for 5 minutes, you felt lighter, safer, as if the air itself had shifted. You didn't walk away thinking about their features, you walked away thinking about their kindness. Compassion has that effect. It doesn't shout for attention, but it changes the entire atmosphere of a room. You can't see it in the way you'd see a diamond ring or a flashy car, yet its pull is stronger than either. It works in silence. I remember once meeting a nurse in a small rural clinic. She was older, hair streaked with silver, face lined from years of life and work. By conventional beauty standards, she wouldn't have been on the cover of any glossy magazine. But when she looked at you, really looked, it was as if she could see straight into the part of you that was tired and hurting. Her eyes didn't just see, they understood. And when she smiled, it wasn't a polite social smile. It was a smile that carried warmth, like a blanket placed over cold shoulders. That's the magnetism of compassion. It bypasses every surface-level standard of beauty we've built, and it speaks directly to the human heart. The funny thing is, the world often treats this kind of beauty as if it's secondary, as if it's nice but not essential. But if you've ever been in pain, lost, or afraid, you know how powerful it really is. In those moments, you don't care if someone has perfect skin or the trendiest clothes. You care if they see you without judgment. You care if their presence makes you feel less alone. And here's the paradox. This invisible beauty often outlasts the visible kind. Looks fade. Fashion changes. But the memory of someone's compassion can stay with you for decades. You might forget the exact shade of their hair, but you'll remember how they held your gaze when you were falling apart. Science even hints at this truth. Studies show that kindness and warmth actually change the way we perceive someone's physical appearance. When a person radiates genuine compassion, we subconsciously see them as more attractive. It's as if the heart casts a glow that the eyes can't help but register, even if we can't explain why. Think about the people you love most in this world. Chances are, their beauty to you has almost nothing to do with symmetry or style. It's how they've been there for you, how they've listened without rushing you, how they've cared in ways big and small. That's the beauty that sticks. But here's the part that's both humbling and empowering. We all have access to this beauty. Every single one of us. You don't need to be born with certain features. You don't need to spend money on treatments or clothes. You just need to cultivate the kind of compassion that sees beyond the surface, both in yourself and in others. Of course, this isn't about pretending life is always soft and gentle. We all have our rough edges, our bad days, our moments of frustration. But invisible beauty grows when we choose, again and again, to meet the world with an open heart despite those moments. Maybe it's offering patience to a stranger who's moving slower than you'd like. Maybe it's speaking to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. Maybe it's listening to someone who needs to tell their story, even when you've heard it before. Every act of compassion adds to this invisible beauty. It's like tending a fire. You feed it, and it warms everyone who comes near. And here's something worth remembering. In a noisy, distracted world, invisible beauty is magnetic precisely because it's rare. Most of what we see is curated, polished, designed to impress. But compassion can't be faked, not for long. When it's real, people feel it. And they're drawn to it, sometimes without even knowing why. I've often wondered, if we valued this kind of beauty the way we value the visible kind, how would our world change? Would we choose leaders differently? Would our relationships be deeper? Would we judge ourselves more kindly? Invisible beauty is not a decoration, it's a force. It has the power to change not just how we are seen, but how we see. And that's why it surpasses every worldly standard of beauty, because it works from the inside out, reshaping not just appearances, but connections, trust, and even the way we live. So the next time you meet someone and find yourself unexpectedly drawn to them, ask yourself, is it their features, or is it something deeper? And then ask yourself the harder question, what kind of beauty am I radiating? Because in the end, the magnetism of invisible beauty is not about chasing an image. It's about becoming the kind of presence that leaves people lighter, safer, and more whole than they were before they met you. And that, I think, is the most beautiful thing any of us can be. Compassion and emotional balance. We live in a time when emotions run like wild rivers. A single news headline can send us into outrage. A short text can ruin our mood. One careless comment on social media can feel like a punch to the gut. It's easy to get swept away, pulled to the extremes, up one moment and crashing down the next. Most of us know that feeling. The heart racing, the mind spinning, the face tightening into lines of stress or resentment. But then, every once in a while, you meet someone who seems different. They move through life with a steady kind of grace. Their face stays calm, not blank, not cold, but serene. You feel lighter just standing near them. And you wonder, how do they do it? Often, the answer is compassion. Now, when I say compassion, I'm not talking about some soft, vague sentiment. I'm talking about a deliberate way of seeing the world, choosing to understand rather than react, to connect rather than condemn. People who live with compassion aren't immune to strong emotions. They feel anger, sadness, excitement, just like the rest of us. But here's the difference. They don't let those emotions drag them to extremes. Think of it like standing in the ocean. Waves will come, some small, some crashing hard. Most of us flail when the big ones hit. But a compassionate person has learned how to keep their footing. They don't try to stop the waves. They ride them, understanding they'll rise and fall on their own. And something magical happens when you live like that. It shows on your face. A compassionate heart doesn't etch itself into lines of bitterness or anxiety. Over time, it softens your features. It gives your eyes a kind of clarity, your expression a quiet openness. Not the forced calm of someone pretending everything's fine, but the real peace of someone who knows they can handle what comes. I remember sitting on a delayed flight once. People were restless, voices sharp, the tension almost physical. Next to me was an older man, reading a paperback novel. He looked up, smiled, and said, "Well, I guess the universe wants me to finish this chapter." That was it. No frustration, no sarcasm, just acceptance wrapped in humor. And you could feel the way his presence calmed the space around him. It made me realize, emotional balance isn't about being passive. It's about being anchored. And compassion is one of the strongest anchors we have. Why? Because compassion shifts our focus. When we are caught in our own irritation or fear, the world feels small and tight. Every inconvenience feels personal. But compassion makes the lens wider. Suddenly, we are not just looking at how things affect us, but at the bigger picture. Maybe the flight attendant is dealing with her own stress. Maybe the person speaking sharply just lost someone they love. When you see that bigger picture, your emotional responses change. The sharp peaks and valleys smooth out. You still care, you might even care more, but you stop letting every wave knock you over. And here's something I've noticed. Compassion doesn't just help us stay steady in hard times, it also deepens our joy in good times. When your heart is tuned to the experiences of others, moments of connection become richer. A shared laugh feels fuller. A quiet thank you from someone you helped feels like sunlight breaking through clouds. There's a quiet confidence in people like this. It's not that they're always happy, life doesn't work that way, but they're grounded. You don't see the flicker of anxiety darting across their faces. You don't see resentment simmering in their eyes. Instead, you see someone who knows how to return to center, no matter what's happening. It's worth asking ourselves, how do we build that kind of balance? It starts small. Maybe you pause before reacting to a frustrating email. Maybe you choose to listen fully when someone's upset, even when you disagree. Maybe you replace the question, "Why is this happening to me?" with what might be happening for them. The more you do it, the more it becomes your default way of being. And slowly, something shifts, not just in your heart, but in how the world sees you. People notice the calm in your face. They notice they feel safe around you. They might not even be able to name it, but they feel it. And that's the quiet gift of compassion. It makes you a refuge in a world that can feel like a storm. So maybe the challenge is this: before you leave the house tomorrow, check your emotional balance. Are you carrying the tension of yesterday into today? Are you letting someone else's anger take root in your mind? And if you are, what's one compassionate thought you can plant instead? Because compassion isn't just about helping others, it's about keeping your own soul steady. It's about refusing to let the chaos outside dictate the peace inside. And when you live that way, your face tells the story long before your words do. The serenity you carry will be your signature. The kindness you hold will be your presence. And in a world that's always rushing, always shouting, that kind of calm is more than rare, it's magnetic. A gentle face as the fruit of wholesome karma. There's a certain kind of beauty you can't buy in a store, and you can't fake it in a photograph. It's not about bone structure or perfect skin. It's something softer, deeper, something that shows up in the way a person's face rests when they're not trying to impress anyone. We've all seen it. The grandmother whose eyes seem to hold both joy and wisdom. The neighbor who always greets you with genuine warmth, even on her busiest days. The stranger on the bus whose smile feels like a quiet gift. Where does that kind of presence come from? In Buddhist teachings, there's a simple but profound idea: wholesome karma. It's the ripple effect created by our thoughts, words, and actions when they're rooted in compassion. When your mind leans toward kindness instead of cruelty, when your words heal instead of harm, when your actions lift rather than crush, those moments don't just pass by. They plant seeds. And over time, those seeds grow into something visible. Think of it this way: every compassionate choice you make is like sunlight on a garden. You might not notice the growth at first, but slowly, your inner life begins to shape the way you look on the outside. The tension in your jaw eases. The sharpness in your eyes softens. Your face becomes an open door instead of a locked gate. Some people call this aging gracefully, but I think it's more than that. It's not just the passing of time, it's the quality of the time. You could live 80 years, but if those years are spent in bitterness, it will show. The lines etched into your face will carry that story. But if your years are filled with compassion, patience, and generosity, that will show too, in ways no makeup or surgery could ever replicate. I remember visiting a rural village in the mountains a few years ago. There was an elderly woman there who had spent her entire life helping others, cooking meals for neighbors, caring for sick children, offering her tiny home as shelter during storms. She had deep wrinkles, the kind you might expect after decades under the sun. But here's the thing: when she smiled, those lines didn't make her look old, they made her look radiant. It was as if each crease was a record of kindness given, love shared, burdens lifted. And that's the thing about wholesome karma: it doesn't just shape your destiny, it shapes your face. Modern science even hints at this. Studies on facial expressions show that the emotions we repeat most often become habitual on our faces. Frown often enough, and your facial muscles will start to set in that pattern. Smile often enough, not the polite, forced smile, but the real one that comes from warmth, and your face naturally rests in a softer, more welcoming expression. Wholesome karma works the same way. If you live with compassion at the center of your life, your face becomes a mirror for that compassion, and people feel it. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt safe around someone you'd never met? That's not magic. It's the energy of a life lived in alignment with kindness. It's the fruit of years of choosing understanding over judgment, forgiveness over resentment. The beauty of this is that it's available to everyone, regardless of age or physical features. You don't need perfect symmetry or expensive clothes. You don't need the right genes. You just need to tend to the garden of your mind. Every day, we are planting seeds. When you offer a word of encouragement, that's a seed. When you choose patience with someone who's struggling, that's a seed. When you refrain from speaking harshly even though you're angry, that's a seed. And over time, those seeds don't just change the way you move through the world, they change the way the world sees you. So the next time you look in the mirror and notice a new wrinkle, maybe don't see it as a flaw. Ask yourself, what story does this line tell? Is it from years of worry, or years of laughter, years of resentment, or years of compassion? Because here's the truth, a gentle face isn't the result of avoiding hardship, it's the result of meeting hardship with a soft heart. We can't control every event in our lives. Life will still throw storms our way, but we can control the way we respond. And those responses, repeated over years, will be etched into us, not just in our hearts, but in our faces. Wholesome karma is the quiet artist, sculpting us day by day. So maybe the most beautiful thing you can do for your face isn't buying a new cream or chasing the latest cosmetic trend. It's choosing compassion. Choosing to see others with understanding, to speak with kindness, to act with generosity. Because long after people forget the clothes you wore or the hairstyle you had, they'll remember how they felt when they looked into your face. And if your face carries the light of compassion, they'll remember that feeling for the rest of their lives. In the end, a gentle face isn't just a reflection of who you are, it's a gift to everyone who meets you. Compassion as the foundation of good relationships. Have you ever met someone for the very first time, and within seconds you felt safe? You didn't know their story, you didn't even know their name yet, but something about their face, their eyes, their energy told you, I can trust this person. That's not an accident. That's not luck. That's compassion doing its quiet work. You see, compassion doesn't just live in your thoughts, it shows up in the way you look at people, the way you listen, the way your face softens when someone is speaking from their heart. A gentle face isn't about the angle of your cheekbones or the curve of your lips. It's about the message your presence sends before you say a single word. You are welcome here. In a world where we are often rushing, competing, and guarding ourselves, that kind of presence is like a deep breath of fresh air. And here's the thing, people remember it. Think about it. The people you trust the most in your life, are they always the smartest? The most successful? Or are they the ones who make you feel seen, heard, and valued? That's the power of compassion. When compassion is at the core of who you are, it becomes the foundation for every relationship you have, whether it's with your family, your friends, your co-workers, or even strangers. It's what allows us to see past differences, to bridge misunderstandings, to work together instead of pulling apart. I remember once meeting a man at a community gathering. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room. In fact, he barely spoke at first, but people naturally gravitated toward him. When someone talked, he didn't just nod, he leaned in. His eyes didn't wander, they stayed with you, as if you were the only person that mattered at that moment. That kind of presence builds trust faster than any handshake or business card ever could. It reminded me of something simple but easy to forget. We are all carrying invisible loads. Stress from work, heartache from relationships, worry about the future. And when you meet someone whose face says, I won't judge you, you can't help but relax a little. That's why compassion is often called the key to harmony in a community. It unlocks the doors people keep locked inside themselves. It gives permission for honesty, for vulnerability, for connection. Now, this doesn't mean compassion is always easy. In fact, some of the moments when compassion matters most are the moments when we least feel like giving it, when someone has hurt us, when they're difficult to deal with, when we're exhausted ourselves. But here's the paradox. Showing compassion in those moments isn't just for the other person, it's for us too. Because the way we respond to others shapes the world we live in. If we meet hostility with more hostility, we build walls. If we meet it with understanding, we build bridges. And bridges, my friends, are what communities are built on. I've seen this play out in the smallest ways. A neighbor who forgives a parking mistake instead of starting an argument. A coworker who gives someone the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming the worst. A family member who chooses to listen instead of snapping back. These moments might seem small, but they ripple outward, changing the tone of entire relationships, and sometimes, entire communities. Compassion also has this beautiful side effect. It makes us magnetic. People are drawn to those who make them feel understood. And when trust and goodwill grow, so do opportunities. Opportunities for deeper friendship, for collaboration, for shared joy. There's a story I love about an old village where disputes were settled not by punishment, but by conversation. When two neighbors had a conflict, the elders would gather them in the center of the village and simply ask each one to share their story while the other listened. Often, by the end, anger had softened. Misunderstandings were cleared. They didn't always agree, but they found a way to live side by side without bitterness. That's compassion in action, not erasing differences, but learning how to coexist in peace. And it all starts with how we see each other. In your own life, imagine how different your relationships could be if every interaction began with compassion. If, instead of asking, "What do I get from this person?" you asked, "How can I understand this person?" When you approach people this way, your face changes, your tone changes, your relationships change, and soon enough, the community around you begins to reflect that same energy back. Here's the truth: no relationship, whether romantic, familial, or professional, can thrive without compassion. Without it, trust dries up, misunderstandings multiply, and connection fades. But with it, even imperfect relationships can endure. So if you want harmony in your relationships, if you want a community where people have each other's backs instead of tearing each other down, start with compassion. Not just the feeling, but the practice. The choice to meet others with understanding, even when it's inconvenient. The willingness to look past the surface and see the human being standing in front of you. Because in the end, a gentle face isn't just a reflection of kindness, it's a signal to the world: I am safe to approach. I am here to understand, not to judge. And that might be the most beautiful thing you can offer another person. Practicing compassion to transform the face. There's a saying that the face is the mirror of the heart. And if you think about it, it's true. You can tell when someone is burdened by anger or fear. Their eyes tighten. Their jaw sets. The warmth is gone. But here's something beautiful. Just as tension can shape our face over time, so can compassion. In fact, it can transform it. I'm not talking about cosmetic changes or skincare routines. I'm talking about the quiet, natural softening that happens when you make compassion a daily practice, especially through something like loving-kindness meditation, or as it's known in the Buddhist tradition, metta bhavana. Now, if you've never heard of it, loving-kindness meditation is simple in concept but powerful in effect. You sit quietly, breathe steadily, and begin sending out thoughts of goodwill, not just to yourself, but to the people you love, to strangers, even to those you have conflicts with. You silently repeat phrases like, "May you be safe. May you be happy. May you live with ease." At first, it can feel strange. We are not used to deliberately wishing others well, especially people we don't get along with. But with steady practice, something shifts, not just in your mind, but in your energy. And that energy shows on your face. I've seen people who have been practicing loving-kindness meditation for years. There's a lightness in their gaze, a calm in their smile. Their presence feels like a warm cup of tea on a cold morning. You can relax around them without even knowing why. Think about the opposite for a moment. We all know someone whose face always looks tense, even when they're not upset. It's like the residue of stress and irritation has left its mark. Now imagine if the residue left behind was kindness, gentle eyes, an open expression. The kind of face that makes people feel safe the moment they meet you. This isn't magic. It's the result of training the heart to stay open. When we practice compassion regularly, we are not just affecting our relationships, we are rewiring our own emotional patterns. Science actually backs this up. Studies have shown that loving-kindness meditation can increase positive emotions, reduce stress, and even improve our ability to read other people's feelings. Over time, that inner shift becomes visible on the outside. Here's what's fascinating. Compassion doesn't just soften the face, it also deepens it. It gives you a kind of presence that beauty alone can't match. There's something profoundly magnetic about a face that carries no hidden judgment, no silent hostility. I remember meeting an elderly woman at a retreat once. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was silver and a little messy. But when she smiled, it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later, I learned she had been practicing loving-kindness meditation every day for more than 30 years. You could see it, not in her skin tone, but in the way her eyes met yours without flinching, without measuring you, without deciding if you were worth her time. That's the kind of beauty you can't buy, but you can grow. So, how does one begin? You don't need hours a day or a meditation cushion in a silent temple. You can start right where you are. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture someone you care about deeply. Imagine them feeling completely safe, healthy, and happy. Let that image fill you. Now, picture someone neutral, maybe the cashier at your grocery store, or a neighbor you barely know, and send them the same wishes. And finally, if you can, imagine someone you've had a hard time with, and wish them well too. The first time you try, it might feel forced. That's okay. Just like exercise strengthens the body over time, this strengthens the heart. The goal isn't to force yourself to feel compassionate instantly. It's to plant seeds that, with repetition, grow into something real. And here's where the transformation happens. When you practice this often enough, you start carrying that warmth into everyday life. You speak differently. You listen differently. And yes, you look different. The lines in your face begin to reflect peace rather than tension. Your smile becomes easier, less guarded. It's not that life stops challenging you. Problems still come. People still misunderstand you. But your face no longer carries the imprint of every frustration. Instead, it becomes a map of the love you've chosen to cultivate. Some people spend their lives chasing beauty through external changes, never realizing that the most attractive quality is one that no mirror can fully capture, a face that radiates kindness. And it's a beauty that doesn't fade with age. In fact, it often grows richer. So, if you want your face to tell the story of a life well lived, start with the heart. Practice compassion. Even 5 minutes a day can begin to shift the way you experience the world, and the way the world experiences you. Because in the end, your face is more than your reflection. It's your introduction. And a face shaped by compassion says to everyone you meet, "You're safe here. You're welcome here."